Today, we're going to talk about adaptive challenges and how you can be an adaptive leader. In community planning, we often encounter adaptive challenges that are really similar to wicked problems. A wicked problem is essentially one where every solution causes additional issues. This requires that we work to come up with a solution that minimizes the amount of future issues for everyone involved. Adaptive challenges are similar as well in that they are difficult to identify and require change and learning to create actual viable solutions. HIFAS distinguishes problems as three types of challenges: technical, technical and adaptive. These problems all require different responses, which we'll discuss moving forward. A technical challenge is easy to identify. It has a tried and tested solution, can be solved by someone with expertise, and only requires a small amount of change and in-the-box thinking. It has solutions that are oftentimes implemented by an authority figure. People are typically really receptive to technical solutions because they feel positive about the solution, and the change only impacts them in a small way. People also love things that are tried and tested. A technical and adaptive challenge is a clear problem and requires some form of learning, but typically someone has solved a similar problem before. Therefore, you can use another solution and learn the process for implementing that in your community. You might make small changes here and there for what makes more sense for your community. However, you oftentimes have a lot of confidence in what their response will be based on the past experiences from others. So the learning is small, but it is required. An adaptive challenge is extremely hard to identify and define the root causes. It requires changes in the way things are done, and it really disrupts the process. It challenges boundaries and requires thinking outside of the box to come up with solutions. And oftentimes solutions come from experimentation and several test runs of new ideas. The first solution is not always going to be the last. There's going to need to be adaptation of that and changes. Individuals sometimes resist adaptive challenges and don't want to approach them or shy away from them, even though they're the overarching problems of a lot of things. This has the same as wicked problems, in which we discussed in a previous one. It's easier to focus on the technical and adaptive challenges than to take the adaptive challenge head on. But in your communities, in order to be resilient and sustainable, you must start approaching these adaptive challenges. When solving adaptive challenges, diversity is valuable because innovation and learning are products of our differences. When sterile conflict takes place of dialogue, a leader has to step in and put the team to work on reframing the issues, deepening the debate with questions and unbundling the issue into smaller parts that we can easily tackle. This prevents the conflict from remaining polarized and superficial. When conflict becomes polarized and superficial, we're not moving forward at all. We're only agreeing in order to compromise and move forward with a solution. It won't get us to the best solution. So what can you do as a community leader? Well, these problems require community leaders who are ready to take on adaptive leadership. This requires that leaders and members don't hold on to past assumptions. They don't blame authority. They don't use a scapegoat. They don't externalize an enemy. They don't deny that a problem even exists. They don't jump to conclusions or find a distracting issue to focus on. All of these things are things that many leaders and members do, but we need to get away from that. Leaders also need diverse teams to approach challenges. They need to build these teams and they need to support these teams. Adaptive leaders need to be equipped with the ability to overcome problem B and to work on problem A. Problem A is the problem or adaptive challenge at hand. Problem B is everything else that gets in the way of us focusing on solutions to problem A. This includes other problems that might be easier to focus on. We might focus on other tasks and avoid it. Intergroup conflict. Anything that distracts us from focusing on problem A. Research tells us that most diverse teams and teams in general spend way more time focused on problem B than they do actually on solving problem A. So as adaptive leaders, you need to find a way in order to really move forward with the approach to problem A and minimize the amount of problem B that's brought into your problem-solving environment. So as the adaptive leader, it is your role to create an environment for problem solving that keeps individuals motivated and focused on those issues at hand, that problem A. This requires time to explore new learning, a safe space for collaboration with support, and demonstrating personal grace by modeling an emotional capacity for uncertainty, frustration, and overall pain. What that means is that you demonstrate how to handle things and move forward with them with emotional maturity. This also requires that you provide that safe space. In a previous video, Problem Solving Through Conflict, we talked about an open way of approaching that. If a leader prioritizes creating this space and engaging in problem solving process with their team, and importantly, I said with their team and not for their team or by their team or above their team, but with their team in an open and welcome way, innovative solution with attentions to all members can be uncovered. This requires that sometimes that leader has to take a step back and see something from what we refer to as seeing it from the balcony. They have to oversee what's going on in order to make their space a safer and better place for collaboration. They may have to talk to the individual that isn't engaged. They may have to prompt people to engage. They may have to handle small group inner conflicts outside of that process in order to really move forward. And sometimes they might need to approach their group in a different way of thinking through a different process or brainstorming process to keep their team moving forward. An adaptive leader can do all of these things if they're able to think really consciously about who they are and really approach the situation with positivity. If you implement adaptive leadership within your community, you'll often find that your teams are more productive to solving these adaptive challenges.